going on, everyone? My name's Alex, my co-host Eileen, and you guys are watching and listening to the Straight to the Chicane podcast. And this week we're back with another new episode. We're talking Saudi Arabia. We're talking the Jeddah GP.
Jeddah GP.
Eileen?
Return of the Jeddah.
Return of the Jeddah. How was your enjoyment of the race? Did you enjoy the weekend? Did everything excite you what you wanted out of it?
Never.
No. I'll tell you what, I always enjoy the fireworks session at the end.
Oh my God, it's so elaborate. It's like the biggest fireworks display ever.
It's really wild. Like, it pulls out all the stops. I've never seen anything like that.
And the drone show.
And a drone show.
Yeah.
They know how to do it there.
They do a whole shebang, that's for sure.
But yes, we are back. We are, like I said, in Saudi Arabia. We had a really good qualifying session with red flags and people like on the cusp of not getting even in. It was really a really good weekend.
I feel like Saudi Arabia always delivers like Monaco-like qualifying.
Yeah,
very close.
They do say it's the walls are close like Monaco.
Yes.
Things are happening fast paced. It is the fastest street track on the whole calendar. Thank you. But yes, I think it didn't disappoint. I think we had a little bit of niceness going down to the last few laps with a lot of other people kind of maybe creeping in for podium positions. And
yes,
it was a really good weekend. Let's get into it, though. So, Oscar.
Another weekend of domination.
Didn't quite get the podium.
Didn't quite get the pole.
Didn't get the pole.
Got the win.
Got the win.
Got the first corner.
Let's talk
allegedly.
Let's talk about the first corner, because there has been a lot of debate about that.
That is the uproar on Twitter currently.
That's probably the biggest thing out of the weekend is Max is very aggressive. We knew him leading the race that he was going to do everything that he could to try to maintain the lead.
Yes.
And what we have seen from previous years.
Correct. Specifically here, because of the way that the first turn is very short from the straight and it's very hard, and it's a quick left right. Mm-hmm.
Right. So were you surprised to see what Max did? Was it typical? Was it exactly the same?
Was I surprised to see what Max did? No.
Well, he was given a penalty.
I think I expected carnage at turn one regardless, Mm-hmm. Was it going to be like George Russell coming from P3 or something more chaotic like that? Potentially. But, we've seen Max at turn one in Saudi Arabia before. So, interesting. Now, it is a wide-spoken debate currently. Zach Brown and Christian Horner. Christian Horner had the printouts. He pulled a Toto and had it printed out yesterday.
He sure did.
But I mean, I think Oscar was on the inside. So yeah, he squeezed Max. So it was like, who's going to let off? And neither one of them did. They were pretty even going into the turn.
I would say Oscar slightly had the advantage going into the turn. And I would say Max let off the brakes to kind of squeeze back around and definitely did not concede the spot or the position, even though technically Oscar was in front of him for turn one. And I think that's why he got the penalty. Now, was 5 seconds enough?
I think he got the penalty because he went off the track, gained an advantage, and took first.
He just didn't give it back. He just kind of stayed in front. Yeah.
Of course. So that's did he deserve a penalty? Was the penalty harsh enough? Should he have given the position back?
Yeah.
And just overtook him or tried to overtake him? Who was the beneficiary? Because at the end of the day, Max stayed in the position and took the 5-second penalty.
And was
that the right decision?
Because at the end of the day, he finished, like 2.5 seconds behind. So,
I think a little bit farther, but still.
3 seconds.
I think Max was able to gain, obviously there's a lot that played into the whole situation because Oscar pitted first and then Max stayed out for a few laps. So it was like, is that where they went wrong? Serving the penalty and then obviously it being at a disadvantage. But I think the penalty was deserved.
I think it was deserved because he didn't give the position back on track. If he would have gave the position back on track.
Right. But people are arguing that it's Oscar's fault, and Max only got the penalty because the FIA hates him.
Oh, that's
And they've changed the rules because they don't want him to be champion anymore.
we know that that's not true. Yeah.
No, I feel like we have seen this, and I will say, watching Lewis be dominant for many years, he did, get a lot of penalties for situations like this where, he was going into turns or, getting into accidents, and there was things that took place, and it almost felt like the pit lane exit, like minimal things that are rules, of course, but he was getting penalties, and so it seemed like he was almost being targeted by the FIA. And now I can understand the opposite side of the spectrum is Max getting, tougher criticism because they don't want to see domination. They don't want to see him be a 5-time champion.
I don't think so.
Well, some would argue differently. So
Okay.
I think, we're aligned
Yeah.
on that one. I think it's interesting. A lot of people get questioned about it. And obviously, Jonathan Wheatley being at the sporting director for Red Bull for so long and thinking back to comparisons like Saudi 21, where at the same turn, and I called it out immediately. I was like, oh my God, this is Lewis and Max Saudi turn 1, literally. Granted, there was like 10 restarts in 21 for those of you that remember. Apparently, some people don't. But I think that Jonathan Wheatley obviously told Max, like, give the position back. That's when we saw the whole crazy crash. And so Jonathan Wheatley was like, well, we all know what I would have said. And so obviously he's insinuating that he would have done something differently than Red Bull did. So
Gotcha. Yeah. I don't know.
The drama of the weekend.
Yeah. Speaking of drama, let's talk a little bit about Lando. So qualifying crashes in Q3. So he starts P10.
Yep. Didn't get a lap in.
Nope. So does that affect his driver championship right now? Because now he's no longer in first, and then not even in second. I think he's in third or fourth right now.
He's in third.
In third.
I think. Yeah. I mean, listen, I think that Lando was coming off of a tough weekend the previous week. He didn't have great qualifying in Bahrain. He started out of position in, P6. He ended up on the podium because McLaren has a fast car. So he's getting a lot of criticism, and he does get dragged through the mud a lot for his performance, and he's inconsistent. He makes a lot of mistakes, and he's very critical on himself.
He is.
And even after his crash, which we've seen, listen, Max crashed in 21 and still ended up being the world champion. So
totally.
Maybe it's a gift.
And honestly, Lando had a really good race too. I mean, he started, like we just said, P10 and finished P4.
Right off the podium, which, like you said, maybe a couple more laps would he have gotten Charles?
I think so.
Probably.
I think a couple more laps he absolutely would have.
Yeah. So good race pace. I mean, maybe the holdup with Lewis earlier.
That's what I was just going to bring up too. So there was a crazy holdup, and honestly, it was reminiscent of 21 and other years.
We love 21.
With between Max Verstappen and Lewis, that they utilize the DRS trigger points
to their advantage.
They do. And honestly, you would think now that like Lando's been here a few years now. He's had this played on him before. He's seen it played on other people before. Clearly with like we just said, with Max and Lewis, with the Checo.
22. We saw it with Charles and Max, where they were like breaking down the straight together because neither one of them wanted to.
So
get the TRS
we got some really cool. We got some really cool overtaking back and forth for like 3 laps between Lando and Lewis, and so that was kind of
like he did it, and like Lewis got the advantage, of course. Lewis,
the first 2 times.
Lewis is like, I know what he's doing, and then it's like the next lap, Lando's like, I'm gonna do it again, same thing.
Yeah.
So he didn't really learn from that, but then his engineer's like, okay, we're going to play the game. So then obviously he got past him, but that held them up for a second,
Totally. And I mean,
so
the announcers even said it like, no, now there's 13 seconds behind when they were only like 6 or 7 originally. So yeah, they lost a bunch of time, and that could have been the final factor.
And everyone was like, ooh, cheeky because Lewis slowed down could Lando have rear-ended him? Very similar to 21.
It wasn't nearly as aggressive.
It wasn't a brake check, of course.
It wasn't nearly aggressive as what Max did there. No.
Yeah.
That was a totally different scenario and stuff. But yeah, so I just kind of wanted to bring that up because he did have a real shit qualifying
2 weeks in a row.
but his race was good and he was just off the podium.
Well, we're going to Miami next.
Well, yes.
Which is where he won his first race last year. So we'll see. There's a lot of good memories for Lando. It's a sprint weekend, so there's obviously more points on the table, which could benefit him, and obviously McLaren is probably going to be dominant at Miami's track.
We do think that is very true. They're going to be very dominant there as well.
Mm-hmm.
And
I mean, Christian Horner said they were like a second faster in practice than any other team.
They weren't. They were a few tenths faster.
Yeah, but still, I mean, honestly, this season so far, 5 races in, the qualifying for P1 and P2 has been less than a tenth every single weekend. So, I mean, granted, I think that Max, the driver's making the situation better in his case. And, I think Oscar's very calm and delivering very well. And, Lando's in there, and so is George.
Yeah, so you're right. George is kind of making a little name for himself. So you keep bringing it up.
I do. I honestly thought that George was going to have a better weekend. But I think they really struggled with like the weather and the heat, the tires, obviously.
I just think the cars that car wasn't nearly as fast as a McLaren or even.
Red Bull looked good all weekend because Yuki looked good until he crashed out. He
was it his fault?
I think so.
Or was it Pierre's fault?
Pierre was ahead and Yuki was behind at his rear axle.
And he slipped a little.
Yeah. So, it's not like it was Max and Oscar going into turn 1. And granted, it was, I think, turn 4. But he was well ahead. And yeah. Racing incident, no points. They're bros. They're obviously good friends. So it wasn't done intentionally.
Yeah, it's too bad because honestly, Pierre Gasly had a really good qualifying. Was in Q3 again, higher than expected.
Same thing with Red Bull. This is the first time the second driver has qualified this high, which is crazy, since Baku last year, 7 months.
So long.
So it's
a decent amount of time.
It's a bummer, for Yuki, but they'll both bounce back. But
they will.
Yeah, Red Bull looked, I think, better. Pit stops for Red Bull were a lot better. Granted, they only had Max.
But also had a 5-second penalty, but that pit stop was quick besides the 5-second penalty.
Yeah. They had time to check the light during the actual penalty. So.
They did.
Yeah.
I want to speak a little bit about Oscar and Lando a little bit before we kind of move on to some of the other teams, because it's something that you've kind of mentioned and a lot of people talk about it, and it's the amount of races Lando's done for how many wins he's had compared to how many races our new champion leader is, our new leader.
So crazy.
Oscar's had very few races because he's only been in F1 for 3 seasons. This is his third.
This is his third season, yeah.
And he's got 5 wins as well. And it's something to bring up, something to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no, I mean, it's, first of all, so Oscar is now obviously 3 wins this season. So 2 last year, 3 wins this season. They're tied for 5 race wins, and Oscar has 82 less Grand Prix. Now, granted, I think McLaren has come a long way, but I think for me, it just goes to show how talented Oscar is.
Very talented, very consistent, and very
very calm.
Humble and modest and calm.
Yes.
And very much.
And he's a clean driver. I think he is, well, number one, he's not scared to do things. We saw the overtake on an unusual place on Lewis.
Yeah, which is he just had to get it done apparently, and he, and he's done that before. And that wasn't the first time he's done it.
He did it this year on Lewis.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, in Australia. So
it's by surprise sometimes,
I mean,
because if you're going against Lewis, you got to remember, he knows where to put that car. He knows when to brake. He's gonna make you earn that spot unless he's not racing you, which is very rare.
Yeah, very rare. But I will say, post obviously race at this point, Max did say he has a lot of a lot of respect for Oscar. And, obviously I think that just goes to show Max at the end of the day. Like, Max isn't frustrated with the situation from turn one. Max is frustrated at the fact that the FIA gave him a penalty when he didn't agree with it. But he's like, Oscar's a calm driver. He's clean. He enjoys racing him. So don't start like pinning fan bases against each other, because we already know that's going to happen.
I also, my next question might be pinning that. Do we have, because now McLaren hasn't had our number one driver yet. They've kind of let them go. Does McLaren have a number one driver now?
Well, they're never going to tell you they do.
Okay.
I mean, Zach Brown was already like, they're both our number ones.
Okay, so then is there going to be...
Well, I mean, come on.
So multi-21.
Multi-21, Seb. So the reason that we wanted to bring that up, and I think it's a good discussion point, is this is the first time an Australian driver has led the World Drivers' Championship.
Mark Wahlberg. Since Mark Webber.
Oh, I was like, Mark Wahlberg is a driver now.
Webber, sorry.
Since Mark Webber, who is Oscar's manager. So if anybody knows how to manage an inter-team battle, it's Mark Webber.
Yeah.
So what the question really is will we have a multi-21 McLaren?
Ooh. Maybe. I think we're at the point right now where they need to make a decision to. They're going to say, well, we can't make a decision. It's still too close.
They're going to wait for like summer break or until it's like, feels like the championship battle's over.
We have, how many more races do we have before summer break? There's quite a few, decent amount, right?
Yeah, maybe like 4 or 5.
Yeah, so
I don't know exactly.
Let's say at the end of those 4 or 5, I don't know exactly either, but there could be a clear outright.
There very well could be, and I think McLaren is dominant enough as a constructor right now that they don't feel like they need to vocalize they're making that decision,
Sure, and I think they're running away with the constructor's side of things.
Correct, yeah, and I mean, here's the thing, is last year we were in the same situation, the same race, with Red Bull leading the championship by far, and so a lot can change. Are they investing most of their time into 2026? Are they just doing small upgrades? We don't really know. But
some of the teams talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, they feel like they're pretty locked in currently, but we have 19 races to go.
But yes, we do have still 19 more races to go. However, after this triple header, I felt like things are flew by. It's already 5 races in.
Yeah.
A new leader that we've never seen. His first time, he's a Formula 2 champion.
And let's pause for a second. He is younger than the current Formula 2 championship leader.
That's just crazy.
Which is wild. By a year, but still.
Yeah.
2000 to 2000.
Shows how good he is.
Yeah.
But let's talk a little bit about Williams.
Let's talk about Williams.
So they're off to a decent start. I feel like
they're off to their best start in the last 9 years.
Oh, it's their best start.
Their best start in the last 9 years.
Well, does that mean where they're standing after 5 races point-wise?
Point-wise in their constructor standing. So they moved up. They took Haas out of the P5 position in the constructors. So I think James Vowles he's made a lot of great changes, it seems. It's very clear. Look at the sponsorships that Williams has. I mean, a few years ago, they barely had anything. Now they've got a title sponsor and all sorts of investments.
Yes.
And Carlos brought a lot of sponsors with him, so, and I think they have Alex, who's very comfortable with the car.
Comfortable with the team? With
the team. Sure, yeah.
He feels he can express himself any way he wants.
True. He's been very vocal. This week it was a little bit better, but...
Oh, yeah, it was much better than...
We have missed talking about the banter on the radio where he is just, like, going off on his team. And
sure.
Is he feeling pressured, or like he needs to prove himself, or like have that sort of dominance where he's like, why are we making these decisions? Like very vocal on the radio, like this is stupid. Well, then pit then, like all sorts of comments. Like he's going off.
Yeah, and we have heard all those. They have aired those.
Yeah.
Yeah. This week it seemed much more calm.
It did.
Much more professional.
Carlos literally kept him in DRS the entire, I would say, like last 10 laps of the race.
Well, the radio came up. The team was like, "Hey, we're gonna have you pass, and we're gonna have you stay in bring him with DRS to get you guys up the road more."
Yeah,
essentially.
And also, Hadjar was
fighting the whole time. Probably have one of the best races ever of F1 so far.
Yeah, he was within DRS. Ended in the points, P10.
Yep.
And we continue to be impressed by him.
And I think he would have probably passed Albon.
Well, yeah, Carlos would have.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Carlos was behind Lewis, and it was like almost 30 seconds. It was like 28 seconds, between the two of them at the end of the race. So I think, Carlos was definitely not trying to run away with it. But good teamwork there to secure double points, their first double points of the season.
Well, and also Carlos finally finished a race and
Got points.
Yeah. And I think he's finally feeling comfortable where he's at.
Mm-hmm.
It took him a little bit. The car is not a Ferrari. The car is not a top tier car, but it's upper mid tier.
Yeah.
And those two are proving it by being able to,
I think
can consistently now hopefully get points every race.
And I think it's kind of exciting because last week we saw Haas move into P5. We saw Alpine have a good weekend. This weekend see Williams, kind of move up and down. So there's definitely going to be a lot of movement when it comes to really the Constructors' Championship, with the exception of probably McLaren right now. But we don't know what's going to happen because in reality, Mercedes is P2, but Ferrari, if they wouldn't have been DQ'd, would be pretty much neck and neck with Red Bull.
They would be.
So it's like, a lot can happen. I know you think that it's like, oh my God, we blew through the first 5 races, but
we did.
We only had 1 sprint race so far.
We got one.
So we've got 5 more and 19 races.
Okay.
Engine penalties. We got all sorts of stuff that's going to be coming into play.
I know there's a lot to come, and we're in Miami next, so I know there's a lot to come.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about Ferrari. Had an okay weekend, I guess. Podium.
First podium of the season.
Lewis didn't really make up any spots, but didn't lose any spots. I think he started in 7th, finished in 7th.
He got ahead of Carlos, but Lando obviously moved up the positioning. So, I mean, listen, I think Ferrari, they're definitely not having a great start to the season. They're definitely struggling, but I think Carlos had a good weekend. Qualified well. I mean, he didn't feel like he could get any more than P4. Had a great race. Ended up on the podium, led the race for some time. I think he used his tires better. And then obviously he was in the front for some time, so he was able to extend a little bit. But great second stint and, held off Lando, was able to overtake George, and secured the first trophy.
For Ferrari of the season, even though Lewis has got the sprint race win, but yes.
Correct. Lewis is struggling. I think that's why it's like kind of bittersweet for me, because we want Lewis to be successful at Ferrari. But, we've talked about it. I think we also need to be open-minded that at the end of the day, it's 5 races in with a brand new car, totally new setup, totally new steering wheel, needs to drive completely different. He even said when he was asked, what do you need to do differently?
I know, change my brain or something.
I need a brain transplant.
Yeah.
And
I know you want to compare him to Carlos as his first year.
Well,
and he's doing better, but you got to also remember, you can do that comparison a little bit. I think that's fair, but you also got to say it's also Lewis Hamilton.
Correct.
7-time, 8-time world champion.
Yeah.
So.
It's not like he doesn't know how to drive, he's not adapting to the car as much as, he wanted to, essentially. But clearly the car has potential, like he said, because
it does.
Charles was able to put it on the podium.
Yeah, but he wasn't putting it on the podium as in fighting for first. He was able to get 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
So there still is a little bit of an issue with the car.
Correct.
And granted, Carlos has been there for now. I'm sorry, Charles has been there for, I don't know. Charles has been there for, I don't know, 7 years.
He's been there for,
6 years.
And he's, came up through Ferrari.
5 years.
So obviously,
a Ferrari driver.
Yeah. As expected, he's adapting better to the car, But I think, it just goes to show, obviously, people expected Lewis to come in and completely dominate. But Lewis has been struggling with this new car style since the new regulations. Like,
very true, too.
It's been inconsistent. But the reason that I wanted to say, listen, I understand he's not doing as well. He's in P7 in the constructors. Obviously, qualifying has definitely been a struggle for him. But people are like comparing him like he's literally like in P20 every weekend. Like, oh, he's doing so bad. Yes, Carlos did out-qualify him again this weekend by 1 position, but he overtook him literally immediately. So people who are trying to say, oh, well, Carlos should have stayed in the seat. what Carlos is doing at Williams is the same thing that Lewis is doing at Ferrari. And also, like, we need to remember that when Carlos went to Ferrari, he wasn't qualifying or finishing races.
He wasn't.
Even as close as Lewis is currently 5 races in. So,
But I will give Carlos a little bit of credits by saying he has been on so many different teams. He's one of the few drivers on the current grid that has probably driven, maybe besides Alonso, with every single motor. So he's
close to getting the Infinity Stone. Like,
yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? For all the motors, right?
correct.
So I think he's
adaptable.
been more adaptable because he's had
Right.
to for his career.
Right.
And whether that's been a good thing or not, I think it's proven for him to be a little bit more of a good thing. Like, he's been able to adapt, because we see people like Daniel Ricciardo who didn't adapt multiple times to different cars and failed,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and same with other drivers along the way. Now, he was just an example, but like,
Yeah.
it shows that Carlos is a good driver.
Right.
And so it is worthy, I guess, of comparing. And also, you know, we got Fred saying 2,000% behind, 100% behind, whatever he said.
Fred said the team is 2,000% behind Lewis. Like, at the end of the day, he's like, listen, there's glimmers of situations where Lewis is feeling good with the car. Even this weekend in Saudi, like, you know, there was, I think the second stint, like, you know, he was doing well. He was catching people. You know, once the hards got, you know, ready to go, you know,
He didn't like it at first.
I mean,
But then once the car got a little
right. Maybe when the fuel like burned off, who knows? He felt better. But, you know, he's still adapting. He even said, he was like, oh, I thought I was going to have a little bit of downtime off in between this race in Miami. Looks like I'm not going to, because I need to figure shit out.
Well, he needs to, yeah.
And so, you know, I think he's committed.
And I think we've had noticed that a lot, especially this year. You kind of mentioned it about his clothing, and typically he has a different set of fashion outfits for every day of the race weekend.
Right.
This year particularly, he hasn't done that.
I think it's only been like 6 or 7 days out of, and that's including like media day throughout the weekend, of all 5 race weekends combined, that he's actually been like in LH Fashion Week type of weekend. The rest, he's been in team kit, driving himself to the track, which is crazy.
Well, he's driving a Ferrari.
True, but still.
I mean,
And I think a lot of like Lewis fans out there, we like eat it up. Like, we love it. We're like, oh my God, what's he gonna wear? I mean, I'm sure he's gonna show out in Miami, but also,
I don't know.
he's got the Met Gala right after
I
Miami.
think maybe that's what, you know, look, I think his focus needs to be not so much what he's going to be wearing for these weekends, because I know that takes
Well, he said that too.
it takes a period of time away from, I think, planning, and not only planning with like his team of people that help him plan, but like it takes time away from what he needs to be doing right now. And what he needs to be doing is mastering the Ferrari car. And so,
And I think, and that's the thing.
and it's the brakes. It's the big thing is brakes.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've talked about or heard about it, but like his
Engine braking.
but his whole career, he's used a certain brand of braking, like brakes, brake pads and brake rotors and stuff like that, and calipers. And now he's on a completely different brand that he's never used before. And so
And he has to use engine braking.
more engine braking.
Yeah.
Which I like to use a lot.
I know. That's why I was like, ooh, it stuck out to me. But I think too, you know, Lewis is very cognitively aware of what people, and while he doesn't pay attention to it, I think he knows that if he's not performing to his best ability and he's showing up and showing out from like a fashion standpoint and, you know, doing his normal Lewis thing, he's going to get criticized for it.
He's going to get criticized. Most of those guys are going to get criticized for anything, especially Lewis.
Especially Lewis. Like, he gets it harder than anybody. And
I mean, he's one of, yes. Yep.
I mean, hands down, like, from what you see, like the amount of people and assholes that are out there, like on their, what did somebody say? On their couch in their underwear, criticizing these people who are, you know, professional athletes. Nobody can do the same things as them. And, you know, he gets criticized a lot, being told to retire and all sorts of stuff. So, you know, I'm behind Lewis 2,000% too.
Right on.
So,
Let it be known.
Yes.
Speaking that someone that doesn't get a whole lot of time talked about, especially we don't really talk about a lot, is Lance Stroll.
We do talk about it.
Not enough.
Listen, okay, it's so crazy. I felt like in the past, I have been very critical of him in previous seasons. Okay. Like, how does this guy still have a seat?
Well, we know why.
We know why he still has.
We don't know. It's because his dad owns the team.
Yes. His dad owns the team. His contract disclosure end date is non-existent. Whenever Lance decides he doesn't want to race, I guess, is when his contract is up. But
So
he had a good start to the season. The first couple races, he scored points, remember? So I think that's why I was like, oh, wow, this is so crazy. Lance has kind of put that Aston Martin in a position.
but he's kind of back to his typical fashion where he kind of crashes out or has bad races or whatever, because he was out in Q1.
Just really bad qualifying, yeah.
You know, the team's car, they've already said they're not really focused on big updates for this year. So
Well, yeah,
they're just
why
going
would
to
you
continue to slowly fall behind.
Right.
You
Well,
know,
that's because Adrian Newey is building their hopefully
next car.
hopefully their rocket.
So then is Lance going to drive that car next year?
Well, and that's the thing too is okay. So let's talk about Lance's comments before we talk about the Lawrence Stroll lineup. So Lance now obviously owns the most Q1 exits of a Formula One driver.
He has a couple bad records that are not really good.
So that's the record that he overtook Kevin Magnussen for this weekend with his Q1 exit. So when he was asked about it, because of course the reporters are going to ask you anything that is going to be topic of conversation that's probably going to be a topic that you don't want to talk about.
Sure.
So he was asked probably 100 times, how does it feel like you've, have the most Q1 exits? And his response was, put the two McLaren drivers
in this car?
In a Sauber,
Okay.
and they'll have the most Q1 exits. So what he's saying is the car that Alonso got all those podiums on is a Sauber? Mic drop? Like,
I mean, look.
no way in hell. You cannot compare the car.
Oh, no, you can't. And Lonzo's has gotten a few podiums, not this year, not even really last year, but
No, last year.
one or two? I don't
Yeah.
remember how many. I know it was something, but
Yeah. I mean, Alonso
beginning of the year.
was like
I remember the beginning of the year. It was
qualified on the front row in Monaco, almost out qualified Max Verstappen. So the car had potential.
last year.
Yes, not this year, sure, but to compare it for the reason that Lance Stroll, and listen, when he was at Racing Point with the pink Mercedes, that his dad bought the pink Mercedes, which was the old Mercedes painted pink. When that happened, that car shouldn't have been exiting in Q1.
No, I shouldn't have.
I mean, he put it on pole in 2020 in Turkey. Remember? Stroll on pole. So the potential is there. We saw him at Williams. He got a podium in Baku. Like he knows how to drive. I think with Lance, I just feel like he doesn't love it. Like I don't get the excitement from him.
He just does.
He's just like, yeah, okay.
He does it because he can do it. That's what he can do.
Yeah.
I guess.
And I think when you think about it, so, I mean, obviously there's been, post Bahrain, there was a lot of chatter about Red Bull. I think we talked a little bit about it last episode. Is Max looking to leave? And Helmut Marko was talking about, well, if things don't, change or progress, we could see Max leaving at the end of this year. Aston Martin being one of those teams that was in big discussion. And Alonso was like, it would be great to have him here, but I don't think it'll happen.
Yeah, I think there would have to be some realizations from Lawrence, the owner of the.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, and I don't think that, I don't know. I mean, you're like at some point, if you are so invested, I mean, Lawrence has put so much money into Aston Martin.
I mean, he's put a lot of money behind it.
New
That's
headquarters.
one thing you cannot say is he's a good father. He puts a lot of money
Into his kids.
and he backs his family up 1,000%. And yeah, I mean, he's pouring millions, hundreds of millions of dollars into Aston Martin, which is currently
New wind tunnel, new headquarters.
So is that a bigger investment than just his son being a teammate there or being a driver there? And is he going to let that all go once?
Like, I feel like Lance Stroll could decide that he doesn't want to do Formula One anymore and just go be like a playboy,
Sure. And then would his dad still maintain the team and run the team then?
I mean, I'm sure he's sure.
Is he hungry enough to
I think he is. I don't think, yeah, sure. As a dad, you want to invest in your kids, but are you really buying a team, investing all this money, buying more shares? Because now we know he owns more of Aston Martin.
He did buy
shares.
more recently. He did.
And not making tough business decisions.
But but I think that decision of buying more shares is a good business decision.
For him and his family, absolutely. But at what point do you decide
What's best for the team?
what's best for the team? I want to take this team to the top. Let's have a conversation.
Yeah.
We know Alonso's not going to be around forever.
No, he's.
But
I'm surprised on how long he's been here. But yeah, I mean the years are numbered, the days are numbered for him, and I would say even for Lance.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's
who goes first.
I mean, exactly, and I mean, who knows? So interesting.
Yeah.
The one other thing I want to talk about that was kind of crazy during the weekend, just to go back to qualifying, was, Max obviously was on pole.
It was back and forth. It was crazy. I mean, there was a lot of people that had pole.
It was, provisional pole. George was on provisional pole. Obviously, Yuki gave him a tow.
He did.
So he played the ultimate team role to get Max,
He gave him the slingshot, the old shake and bake. Yes, he did.
And then when Max was on his lap, he's on his hot lap, putting in a lap, and Lewis is in front of him. And Lewis slowly got out of the way quickly. Max drives by him and gives him the thumbs up on a quali lap, one-handed thumbs up. Crazy.
Hey.
I mean, and so if that for me is, just unreal, first of all. And second of all, I mean, I just don't think we give Max enough credit.
Well, I think we know how much he really enjoys this track, how good he is here.
Well, so that's the other thing too. I think we forgot to say is he set the track record.
A lot of people set the lap record yesterday. Just
No,
qualifying. In qualifying, it just happened one after another. But then he set
qualifying track lap.
Yeah.
I don't think they set a new race lap record, but
no. But the fastest usually is always in qualifying.
No. So I mean, it just is impressive. And then also, I'm like, people always are like, oh, Lewis and Max, they hate each other. Like, did they see the onboard and they thought that Max gave him the middle finger and really gave him a thumbs up?
Right.
Lewis, got out of his way because he knew he was coming and didn't want to be a dick.
Well, and that's the right thing to do in qualifying. Like, that's one thing I like about Formula One is there's a lot more respect among the drivers. Granted, there are little tissles between certain drivers, but it's not like NASCAR or IndyCar where, man, the bumping and hitting and the lack of
it's just messy.
The lack of gentleman driving, is not in the American sport. I feel
NASCAR is like bumper cars. Like anytime I see NASCAR, it feels like bumper cars.
You guys can hate on it all you want and hate us for that, but it's just not the same. Like at least there's a level of respect in Formula One that they're not going to go out and just nudge you and bump you and use that as an advantage. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's just the more level of professionalism. Yeah. That's why I keep Formula One on a higher tier than I
also like
or NASCAR. Not that there's anything wrong with those series,
Yeah.
But
I just am like, obviously, it's a lot cheaper to repair those cars.
Well, those cars as well. You're right, because IndyCar and
they're all the same, right?
Well, yeah, they're a stock car that is manufactured by one thing, and the only thing that's different is the motors that's in there. Mm-hmm. They're very much it's a stock car. That's why that's why NASCAR is like a stock car,
right?
And they're all the same thing, right? The only thing that looks a little different is the molding is either a Mustang or an Impala or a Taurus or whatever, right? Yeah. And so it's all the same underneath, other than I'm a Chevy motor, I'm a Ford motor driver, right?
Yeah.
Compared to where the Formula One is just a handbook with rules, and
you interpret what you want to do.
Now, granted, for example, Red Bull makes certain parts of cars that they sell to other teams, and other teams do the same thing.
Yeah.
Right, because there's certain things that are just Red Bull made this product really, really good. It's like I can't remember what part it is, but they did a certain part that's better than any other team. So all the teams buy it from them. Mm-hmm. And so other teams do that too. So it's just a different level. And you're right. These cars are millions of dollars each.
Right. Exactly.
But I think the motor alone is like $7 or $10 million.
Exactly. So they can't afford to be crashing out. and causing chaos.
And then I don't know also the rules in IndyCar or NASCAR is how many motors you can have throughout a season, how many transmissions you can have, because Formula One, we're really limited on all that, you know. And I know,
I mean, the frame of the car is probably totally different too. So, you know, are they like breaking an axle every time they crash, or they bump, or is it just cosmetic, you know? So
yeah, it depends. IndyCar is more like a Formula One car with the way they're built, you know.
Right. NASCAR's a lot different.
Yeah,
so
it is.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, back to Formula One.
Back to it. Yeah. I'm like, what else?
What else? Well, there's a lot else.
I'm like, I think we have to talk about Antonelli, you know, obviously.
Rookie driver,
another solid performance, P5 in qualifying, P6 in the race, right? You know,
so another weekend with points.
Another weekend with points, I think, you know, obviously the big conversation is he going to break the rookie record for points? And
I mean,
probably.
So right now, I found you told me that Lewis holds that record.
Correct.
With 105 or something?
107.
107 points during the old point era.
Right.
Because the points have changed and now there's way more races than there were during that time frame as well. So
it's not even that. The point system is totally different. So it's obviously
it's a lot more points.
You're gaining a lot more points.
Yeah.
Race win back in the day was not 25 points. So
no, and it wasn't even all 10 drivers. The top 10, it was top 8. And,
right.
You know.
So he'll probably break the record. Now it's like with an asterisk. So, you know, that's the thing is a lot of these records have been broken from back in the day, but it's new generation, 24 races. A lot more points, sprint races that get thrown into it. So
they do.
Some of these records, you know, we can't really think of. But bottom line, I think what we can say is that Antonelli is performing very well, you know, and
these rookies are doing it.
These rookies are doing it. And I swear, I thought it was going to be more chaotic with having 6 rookies.
I did too. I thought, especially this weekend.
Yes.
Going to Jeddah, I was really surprised that there wasn't a red flag and that it was only just a yellow flag.
There was just the safety car.
The safety car for the race. That's what I mean.
No, I know.
There wasn't I would have thought for sure there was going to be a red flag for a race.
Yeah.
And there wasn't. And it wasn't even, it was 2 seasoned drivers.
Right. No, I know.
So,
there could have been a red flag when Bortoletto almost hit his manager.
Oh, speaking of that, do you think their flight was awkward at the way?
I mean, Fernando said that he might not serve him a meal on the way home. So, but that I think was like the oh shit moment. I mean, you look up and it got broadcast live on, and he's like, whoa, he pulled a Kimi Räikkönen. Whoa.
Yeah.
And so it was close. And it was just funny because it was his manager that he almost hit. So it could have been bad. It could have been bad.
Yeah, it was a good weekend. There was a lot of good overtakes, a lot of good passing. The front was back and forth, and that's just because of Max having a 5-second penalty. And if that 5-second penalty didn't happen, who knows what would have happened? Who knows? Maybe he would have won the race.
We like a good race where there is like a lot of different strategy too. You know, I think that just kind of is the fun part about it. So obviously Lando's starting on an offset tire too.
Yeah.
I think
he needed to do something different.
Yeah, I think that's what makes a race exciting. And Saudi is not known for like a lot of overtaking, you know. We did see some, but it's a circuit that's not generally like that. So obviously not a crazy amount of pit stops that were bad, which is good. We saw a couple slower ones. But for the most part, you know, like nothing egregious or wild like Red Bull last weekend.
Yeah, it was all pretty smooth sailing. Yeah. And in fact, Red Bull had a pretty good one as well. And
yeah, I mean, Ferrari's pit crew, they're delivering. So nobody can make them look like clowns this year. 5 races in.
Only them.
Only them. Yes. So, but yeah, it was good.
All right. So I think we've pretty much digested that whole entire weekend.
That was fun.
It was.
Yeah.
We got a week off. They finally get a week off after the triple header. They're now coming to the United States. They're in Miami.
Yes.
For the, what do they call it down there?
It's the Miami Grand Prix.
Yeah, I know. But it's like South Beach or they do something. And if you guys have, we went the first year.
Yes.
They do all kinds of cool events on South Beach and in that whole area.
And it's not in South Beach. It's like, you know, outside of the city. It's obviously, you know.
They have pop-up shops, and I'm sure they
tons of cool stuff
as well.
If you're going for the weekend,
there's lots of things.
Uber's going to be expensive, but there's going to be a ton to do in the city, and the weather's going to be nice. So, you know, enjoy.
Yeah.
I'm going to have FOMO. It was hard not to make a decision to go, but
We didn't go.
we decided not to. We will be in Texas like always. And yeah, looking forward to another race weekend.
Yep. So, like always, if you guys have made it this far, thank you very much. You guys are awesome. Like,
Subscribe, comment, talk
yeah,
to us.
Yeah, let us know what you guys saw the weekend. Thank you, Eileen. I want to know. I think we all want to know what you guys, our thoughts are as well.
Who's ready for the McLaren battle? We know it's coming. When is it going to hit? When is the first race going to be like the battle between the McLaren?
I think it's coming soon.
It's coming. It's culminating. You always feel it with the championship battles.
Yeah.
You know it's going to come to fruition. So I'm ready for it.
All right.
Going to eat it up.
Well, that is it for us. We'll see you in like 2 weeks' time, roughly. I guess that's it for me.
Yeah, that's it. Bye.